On August 24, 2025, President Donald Trump shattered a quiet Sunday morning with a move that would send shockwaves across the nation and the world. In a stunning digital declaration, he took to social media to announce what many would see as an unprecedented act of aggression, not against a foreign adversary, but against two of America's most prominent news networks, ABC and NBC. From his Truth Social account, Trump demanded that the FCC revoke the broadcast licenses of both networks, a move that stunned political observers and media professionals alike. This was not just a critique of the press, it was a direct, historic assault on the very institutions tasked with holding power to account. He labeled ABC and NBC as the most biased networks in American history, framing them as partisan enemies of the state, and painting them as a threat to the very fabric of democracy itself. This was not just political rhetoric, it was a call to action, signaling a willingness to wield the full force of government power to punish and silence media adversaries. The announcement sent immediate shockwaves through newsrooms nationwide, igniting urgent debates about the limits of presidential authority and the enduring strength of the First Amendment. For journalists and citizens alike, the message was unmistakable. The independence of the press, a cornerstone of American democracy, was now under direct and open threat from the highest office in the land. The specificity of targeting ABC and NBC, and the extraordinary call for license revocation, marked a dangerous escalation in the ongoing battle between the presidency and the press. The move forced a national reckoning, raising profound questions about the fragility of American democratic institutions and the resilience of constitutional protections. The digital shot had been fired, echoing far beyond the walls of the White House. Its reverberations were only just beginning, setting the stage for a fierce struggle over the future of free speech and the role of the press in America. At the heart of Trump's attack is a narrative of personal grievance, not journalistic failure. He frames the media as a monolithic force out to get him, fueling a sense of victimhood that resonates deeply with his supporters. This approach isn't just about correcting errors or bias. It's about undermining the very legitimacy of the press itself. He claimed, without evidence, that 97% of stories about him on ABC and NBC were negative, a statistic designed to paint the networks as relentless enemies. By repeating this figure, Trump sought to convince the public that mainstream media outlets were not just critical, but fundamentally unfair and dishonest in their coverage. Trump insisted he'd had one of the greatest 8 months in presidential history, achievements he said the fake news refused to acknowledge. He often listed economic gains, job growth, and foreign policy moves as evidence, arguing that the media's refusal to report these successes proved their bias. The trigger for his outburst, a critical segment on ABC's This Week featuring former ally Chris Christie, was hardly unusual. But for Trump, even routine political analysis could be recast as a personal attack, justifying his escalating rhetoric. Trump's furious response included personal insults and threats, demonstrating how even minor criticism could provoke disproportionate retaliation. His public tirades often blurred the line between political theater and genuine attempts to intimidate critics. This pattern, labeling all negative coverage as fake and threatening legal or regulatory action, serves to delegitimize dissent and insulate his supporters from inconvenient facts. It's a tactic that not only sows distrust in the media, but also erodes the foundation of democratic debate. The threat to revoke licenses is the ultimate extension of this strategy, moving from words to the tangible threat of silencing opposition. By targeting the very infrastructure of news, Trump signaled a willingness to use government power against perceived enemies. It's a dangerous conflation of negative coverage with illegitimate journalism, one that risks chilling free speech and undermining the essential role of a free press in holding power to account. Trump's threats landed in a regulatory environment already primed for political pressure, where the boundaries between government oversight and partisan influence were growing increasingly blurred. Under Republican Chairman Brendan Carr, the FCC launched sweeping reviews into major networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, NPR, and PBS, while notably excluding Fox, a move that raised eyebrows and fueled accusations of favoritism. The FCC's probes extended beyond traditional broadcast compliance, targeting diversity and inclusion policies at media giants like Disney and Comcast. This marked a significant shift, pushing the agency into the heart of the nation's ongoing culture wars and signaling a willingness to scrutinize corporate values as well as content. Critics argue these investigations are designed to intimidate companies that don't align with the administration's views, creating a chilling effect that reaches far beyond the networks under direct scrutiny. Carr has openly supported Trump's lawsuits against news organizations, shifting the FCC from a neutral regulator to what many see as a partisan enforcer. This public alignment with the administration's legal battles has further eroded trust in the agency's independence. The revived investigation into CBS's 60 Minutes, which complicated a major merger, only receded after a settlement with Trump, suggesting regulatory pressure was used as leverage in high-stakes business negotiations, blurring the line between regulation and retaliation. The FCC's willingness to investigate news content and corporate policies based on political complaints chills the entire industry, making journalists and executives alike wary of crossing invisible lines. Broadcasters now face the threat of losing licenses or business deals for critical reporting, forcing many to weigh the risks of investigative journalism against potential regulatory backlash. The FCC's transformation from public guardian to political enforcer threatens the very foundation of press freedom, raising urgent questions about the future of independent journalism in America. Alongside regulatory pressure, Trump weaponized the courts, filing defamation lawsuits that forced media companies into costly settlements. In July 2025, CBS's parent, Paramount Global, paid $16 million to settle a Trump lawsuit, just before the FCC approved a crucial merger. Disney, ABC's parent, reached a similar multi-million-dollar settlement, blurring the line between legal risk and regulatory approval. FCC Chairman Carr's public support for these lawsuits further merged personal grievance with official policy. These settlements send a chilling message. Critical reporting can bring financial ruin and regulatory roadblocks. Newsrooms now weigh the risks of holding power accountable against the threat of retaliation. The result is a press less willing to challenge authority, undermining its role as a public watchdog. The administration's campaign didn't stop at commercial broadcasters. Public media was also targeted. In 2025, Congress, at Trump's urging, eliminated all federal funding for public media, plunging NPR and PBS into crisis. Local stations, especially in rural areas, faced layoffs, canceled programming, and even closure, creating news deserts across the country. The rationale echoed attacks on commercial networks, accusations of liberal bias and opposition to the administration. This move undermined the statutory mission of public media to provide objective, educational programming for all Americans. By crippling NPR and PBS, the administration weakened the informational infrastructure vital to democracy. The loss of these voices leaves communities less informed and more vulnerable to misinformation. Trump's threat to revoke ABC and NBC's licenses oversimplifies the FCC's actual authority. The FCC licenses local stations, not networks themselves. ABC and NBC own key stations in major markets, which could be targeted. Revoking a license is legally difficult and historically reserved for serious violations, not news content. The First Amendment and decades of precedent protect against content-based revocation. Past FCC chairs from both parties have affirmed this principle. Yet, under Chairman Carr, there's a new willingness to test these norms, creating uncertainty and fear in the industry. Even without actual revocation, the threat alone intimidates broadcasters. The mere possibility of government retaliation chills press freedom. Presidential tension with the press is nothing new. Nixon and Kennedy both pressured news organizations, though often behind the scenes. What sets Trump apart is the public, performative nature of his attacks and the direct use of social media to issue threats. Attacking the fake news is central to his political identity, aiming to undermine the credibility of journalism itself. The call to revoke licenses marks a shift from rhetoric to punitive action. The current FCC's alignment with the president's agenda erodes the traditional firewall of regulatory independence. Past FCC leaders resisted political pressure. Today, that independence is in question. The convergence of presidential rhetoric and regulatory action creates a more direct threat to press freedom than in previous eras. The stakes for journalistic independence have never been higher. The battle between the Trump administration and the media is a fight over the very role of a free press in democracy. At stake is the press's function as an independent watchdog, informing the public and holding power accountable. Threats to revoke licenses, targeted lawsuits, and defunding public media all aim to weaken this institution and replace it with a compliant press. When journalists are intimidated and newsrooms face financial and regulatory threats, reliable information suffers. This vacuum is filled by misinformation and partisan spin, deepening national division. The nation stands at a crossroads: defend a free, independent press, or accept a media landscape shaped by political loyalty. The outcome will define not just the future of ABC and NBC, but the character of American democracy itself. The stakes could not be higher.